Pinchas. Or the Torah portion we're going to discuss tonight is actually last Tuesday's. It's called Parshat Balak, which we're going to discuss some of the interactions between Bilam and Balak. Tonight's Torah portion in Phinehas, kind of gives us an idea of what it is to take action. Phinehas was, although he was counted as one of the sons of, or grandsons of Aaron, he was, on his mother's side, he was from the tribe of Jethro, which were Midianites. They were not Jews. So he was not a purebred, and therefore he was not considered, priest fodder. So he could not actually serve as a priest or serve as a Levite. But the children of Israel got involved with the practices of Moab, and they got involved with the pagan practices of Moab, and it got to the point where it was very serious, and that Yahweh actually sent a plague, and the plague was going through the camp. And it was a very serious plague, and people were dying left and right. So Phinehas took action. He saw Zimri, who was one of the chiefs of one of the tribes, and a Midianite woman named Corrie that were laying together, and he went and he ran them through, killing them both. And because he did this, he showed to the people that this type of thing was not to be accepted in the congregation, that because he did that, the people stopped what they were doing, and the anger of Yahweh was stayed, and as a result the plague stopped. But it was already 24,000 people too late. But because he was not afraid to take action, because he was not afraid of people calling him half-breed, that he took action on behalf of both the Jews and the Gentiles, that the people would live. And because he took action, Elohim promoted him and said that he would have peace in his life, but he also promoted him to the priesthood, and he became one of the priests that would serve at the temple. So, in a nutshell, the little story that we've just read in our parsha tells us that there are times when we need to take action. When we see that things are going south in the word of Elohim, that sometimes no matter how uncomfortable it may be, or how inadequate we might feel, sometimes we're the only ones that can take a particular action to stave off a destruction that's going to come upon the people and turn the face of our Elohim away from destroying his people. Anyway, so tonight is Parshat Balak. Let's go to our Elohim and ask for his help, and we'll take a look at some things in this. Our Heavenly Father, our Sovereign Master, Yehovah our Elohim, we thank you for the opportunity to study your word. We ask that you'll open our eyes, open our ears, open our hearts, so that we can hear, see, and understand what your word has to tell us. We'll be sensitive to the Spirit, so that it will be etched within us. We thank you for it in the name of Yeshua. Amen. All right. Reader's Digest of Parshat Balak is the children of Israel are camped outside of Moab. And the children of Israel have been commanded by Elohim not to bother Moab. Moab is protected because they are descendants of Lot and they have their portion. So the children of Israel are simply camped out there minding their own business. They're not to touch Moab. However, the king of Moab, Balak, gets all bent out of shape because he's seen what the Israelites just did to the Amorites, that they utterly annihilated them. And he's afraid that they are going to come and totally annihilate Moab. Apparently he hasn't read the history where it says that Moab is not to be touched. So he sends for a prophet, a half-prophet, part-time sorcerer kind of guy named Balaam. Now, Balaam and his sons have been serving in Pharaoh's court, but they have this little piece of property. So the people from Balak come to Balaam and say, Balak has called you, he needs your help, he'll pay you a lot of money if you will come down and curse the Israelites. Balaam says, I have to pray about it. So he goes and he talks to Elohim. Elohim says, no, you can't go curse the Israelites. Tell him you can't go. So he goes out and he tells them, I can't go. And they say, well, we'll offer you a lot of money. We'll make you famous. Your honor will be above everybody's in the land. He says, hang on just a second. Goes back and talks to Elohim again and says, look, they're offering me a good deal. I can make a lot of money off this. Elohim says, fine, you can go. But you can't say anything unless I tell you what to say. So they get on their way, and they're trudging along towards where Balak's going to meet up with them. And Balaam is on his donkey, and the donkey sees an angel. And the angel's waving a sword, and he's about to cut Balaam in half when the donkey veers off the road. And Balaam gets all upset and starts beating the donkey to get him back on the right path. Donkey gets on the right path. He's going down again, sees the angel again, and the angel's about to lop off Balaam's head. And so the donkey goes the other way. And Balaam gets all bent out of shape and starts beating on the donkey. Gets back on the road, and they're going down the road, and here comes the angel again. This time the donkey knocks Balaam off of his back. And Balaam's just totally out of it, so he starts beating the donkey. And the donkey turns around to him. And Elohim speaks to Balaam through the donkey, says, knock it off. Can't you see the angel? And Balaam looks up and he sees the messenger of Elohim with the sword. And the messenger of Elohim says, I have a message for you from Elohim, that you are not to say anything against his people. You can only bless them. You cannot speak any curses. So he goes up, and this is where our study begins. And Balaam, and this is Numbers 22, verse 39. It says, and Balaam went up with Balak, and they came to Kiriath Huzot. So let's consider the makeup of some of the words in this verse to see how our lives and our situations fit into it. Because we say, okay, we have this story. How does our life fit into this? So let's take a look at, first of all, Balaam. The name means not of the people. And if we consider this concept in Hebrew, we have lo shel ha'aman. Okay? Lo shel ha'am, which means not of the people. When we studied our plagues in Egypt, we understood that people, the word for people, had more to do, or more to tell us than simply people. That the way it's composed, we saw that it had the ayin telling us that it dealt with our perception. It also had the mem, which dealt with our perception not only of the word, but as a closed mem, our perception of being able to hear and be guided by the anointing of Yahweh. So we look at it in that representing our perception of the word of Elohim. So in the saying, not of the people, we can consider perhaps that at times we have a viewpoint that is not in line with our Elohim. We say, not of the people. A differing viewpoint from that of Elohim. What else do we see in not of the people? Well, we see that we have instruction in the Lameds twice that tell us that we might not be paying attention, if our perception is off, to the instruction that comes from Elohim to start with, but that also, we haven't gotten to it in our Hebrew letters yet, but that also that the shin, we have the front side of shin and we have the back side of shin. The front side of shin deals with, basically, in a nutshell, Elohim's point of view. It deals with freedom, deals with the liberty that we get through our relationship with Elohim. The back side of shin deals with the contrary, how our point of view and our carnality affects our lives, and how our relationship with the Satan is more of what runs our life than our relationship with Elohim. So on the front side we have freedom and life, and on the back side we have bondage and ultimately death to sin. So in Bilam, we're looking at a point of view. And the question we ask is, whose point of view are we looking at in Bilam? Now, we can have a point of view that goes contrary to Elohim's, and we say, how is this possible, or where do we see this in Bilam? In Bilam, the root of Bilam is bala, a word that means to be worn out, to be used up. We are most susceptible to not be fully perceptive when we are worn down and our energy is used up. We are most susceptible to seeing things from a carnal point of view when we are worn out and our energy level is used up.
Is that in, is that in here?
Yeah, it's in the notes. It's, perception of what? First of the word, but specifically of the instruction of that word that keeps us focused on the fact that we are part of the household of Yahweh. And that it is that point of view that we have to seek to hold on to. We lose perception when we are worn out, ragged out, bone-tired because we won't take time to stop. That we start losing our perspective, and we start losing our vision of our relationship with our Elohim. And carnality starts to creep in, and we start to neglect our relationship. And what happens is that we start to back out of the household a little bit so that we are not covered by that. And when we are not covered, what happens? What happened to Isha when she was separated from Ish? That is when Satan, the deceiver, comes and starts to prey on you and starts to try to drag you into a different direction. So we are able to overdo this because we are paying heed to his instruction. In the parasha, we read that Elohim instructed Bilam to only say what Elohim placed in his mouth to speak. We note that Bilam is following Balak in this verse, and Bilam went with Balak, so Bilam is following Balak. Balak means devastator or destroyer. So we have to understand from this that it is Satan who wishes to destroy us, and will do so by seducing and deceiving us at our weakest point in order to bring a division between us and the Word. We hear it all the time. The devil's attacking me. Satan's attacking me. The thing is that the devil doesn't attack you. The devil doesn't really have to do anything except wave a piece of delicious something in front of your nose when you're worn out, tired, and ragged out. And we have a tendency to chase after it. We have a tendency to say, I don't feel like praying. I don't feel like opening my Bible. Okay? It sounds meddling. It sounds like a preacher-like, but it's true. We derive our strength from the Word. And if we stay clear of the Word, and we stay clear of our communication with Elohim, when we're tired and worn out and ragged out, that we tend to be negative. And when we're negative, then, like Yeshua told Peter, What you bind on earth is bound in heaven. What you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. And if we are negative, then that has to be honored. And it is honored. And we start to see the results of that negativity, and that things start to go south in our life. But anyway, it is Satan who wishes to destroy us, and will do so by seducing and deceiving us at our weakest point in order to bring division between us and his word. And this is brought to our perception in the word Kiriath Huzot. That's this. Kiriath Huzot. The root of Kiriath is kara, which means to bring about or to encounter. And the root of Huzot is chutz, which means outside, but more specifically to sever or to be separated by a wall. So in Kiriath Huzot, we see it's something about to bring about or an encounter with a separation. We encounter a separation behind a wall. It brings around or brings about separation in our lives between us and Elohim. We look at it further. We count. Say, how many letters do we have in this particular word? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I have 8 letters in Kiriath Huzot. What does that tell me? It means to encounter a situation where I am divided behind a wall. 8 is a numerical value of what letter? Het. What does het represent? Het represents a wall. The first time we see het as the root of a word in Torah is in the word chavet, which means to be hidden. The word het is the Hebrew word for sin. So we understand that in our weakness, when we're tired, when we're worn out, we have a tendency to be stuck behind a wall where we can't or we don't want to walk with our Elohim. We would rather hang out with the destroyer. So we say het is composed of the Zion yoked to the Vav, but it's also very simply a wall. And there comes our choice, is that we can choose to be worn out and be hidden, or we can choose to allow ourselves to be nourished and protected and receive rest by yoking ourselves to the Word. Okay? This is, we choose not to be hidden behind a wall of sin. We can yoke ourselves to our Elohim through His Word that protects us, nourishes us, and brings us rest. So we keep in mind that being worn down, bilam, we allow ourselves to be led by the destroyer, Balak, to where our perception is obstructed by a wall separating us from our relationship and blessing in Yahweh our Elohim through His Word that brings restoration in and through Yeshua. We deny ourselves restoration because we are not in Yeshua, and because we are behind a wall, those blessings cannot come through in the name of Yeshua. This is why it's important to take quality time to spend in prayer and study of the Word. And again, it isn't how much you study. We've just seen that just looking at a single letter tells us a whole lot. We've seen that looking at the name of one of the locations, the first location that they came to, told us a whole lot. So we look at the Hebrew. Take time to study one letter, one word, and that will help you, and that will invigorate you and restore you and give you the energy to communicate, to pray with our Elohim. And we look at Matthew 4:1-4 to get an idea. This is Yeshua has been in the wilderness for 40 days. And when Yeshua This is Matthew 4, 1 through 4. When Yeshua was led up into the wilderness